Here we are at the Hobbletree Park, the 40th anniversary. Yes, it is the Flying Fruit Fly Circus under the big top. A huge crowd has just gone into the tent for the 1 o'clock matinee here on Saturday, December the 7th in 2019. And what a monumental time with me. And this is a great honour to have with me one of the founding fathers of the Flying Fruit Fly Circus, Mr. Robert Bomber Perrier. Bomber, welcome.
Thank you.
It's so good to have you on board. 40 years, how does it feel?
It feels good. There's a part of it that feels almost the same, and part of it that is kind of about the past and thinking about the past. It's been overwhelming coming here because there's so many people that I haven't seen for so long, and it's emotionally overwhelming because you can't get a lot of long time with people, if you like, because somebody else comes in and it's incredible.
Well, you saw a show yesterday. You went to the meet and greet last night.
Yes.
You've been to see the two films this morning at the cinema centre.
Yes.
You must be just completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, I am overwhelmed, but also I think when I came on Thursday night, and they took me into the tent for the last act, so I got here in time for that. And honestly, I wept, and then I came and saw the full show the following morning, and the thought that came through in my head was that everything has changed and everything is exactly the same, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing, because it sort of suggests that there's something that was created at that time which still exists. And that's what's very special about it. I don't know where else that quality of kind of the spirit of something exists still.
Yeah, and it is a spirit, isn't it? It's gone beyond something that's, a practical working model, or a corporate identity, or an institution. It's beyond all of those things.
Yes, it is.
It's actually now joined something of the spirit world of cultural Australia.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true, and I don't think it can be replicated, and I certainly don't think it can be transported. It was like we came up with a good idea. It was the right idea, the right people, the right place, the right time. And kind of if you deconstruct all of those things, like even just place, I don't think this could have worked in a city. A city is too vast, it's too diverse. But if you get 80 kids out of a school in a community of 70,000 people, then eventually those 80 kids are going to have their roots in almost every section of that community, and that's what happened. And the people here just absolutely loved it and embraced it. And I was saying something to somebody yesterday. You can get $2 million a year in subsidy or whatever it is that people get, but in the end, the 5 kilograms of sausages that are provided by the butcher is spun gold, and that kind of contribution that comes from the community is what has always been there and will always keep it going.
Yeah, the community contribution was indeed incredible, and it seemed like parents and just anyone in the community who thought it was a good idea got on board, all at once.
Yes.
Was there ever a feeling that you had to actually go out and convince people that this was a good idea?
No. In fact, there's another thing that happened, because we got the theatre company got a reasonable amount of subsidy as a new theatre company. I think the total amount we got was more than what was normally provided. And the Fruit Fly Circus was the second project.
Yes.
We got further funding from the Schools Commission, but we literally invested every single dollar that we had in this one thing. So if it failed, we would have been the shortest living theatre company in the world. There's no doubt about it, and I don't think anybody would have got a job anywhere else. And half an hour before the first Fruit Fly show, I think we had 8 shows. We had 25 people booked for the entire season. The tent seated 650 people, and we had, per show, we had 25 people. And I was standing out here with John Paxanos, and saying to him a very similar thing, which is that, this could be the shortest lived thing in history. And thanks, mate. I'm doing my best. And then suddenly, like, I don't know, 20 to 11 or something like that, just waves of people, biblical waves of people came over that mound over there and just filled up the tent. And it was amazing. So, no, we didn't have to go out and convince anybody. We had to put everything on the line and sort of have the courage to do that, and not be worried about any of that stuff. It either worked or it didn't work.
Yeah, it certainly worked, and a testament to it to me is all the people who are here today who have remained connected, from the performers who are this size, who are now in their 50s, and trainers who are now in their 50s, and they're training the next generation and the next generation and the next generation of kids. To people like yourself who, they've been away. There are people who have just gone off and done different careers, but they've come back. They always come back. There is this focus, and it's the strength. You talked, and Faye Stevens talked about the tree. The roots that go very, very deep into the ground, and the tree that's been affected by drought at times and by floods at times, but the trunk grows up, and then all the branches, and then it's the canopy that now covers the world.
The canopy is all of these companies that have grown out of it, and they're incredible companies. And when you look at it, one of the reasons they're distinctive is because Australia is a very small market. So a lot of those companies formed simply out of the desire to do something exciting and new and whatever. So there's a poverty about it. And if you look at Cassis, or you look at Circa, or you look at what Joe Lancaster and Simon Yates are doing, if you look at any of their work, there's a simplicity about it, and there's a poverty about it. And that poverty somehow feeds that incredible creativity which is in all of that work, and it goes all over the world. And the tree really is all of those companies and all of those people, and that's the canopy now that kind of protects what's underneath it. And I think what's underneath it is what really needs protecting, and what that is it's getting all of its nourishment from this community, from the kids of the community, from the parents, the teachers of the community, from the various businesses within the community, and it doesn't and it can't get too big for its own boots, and if it stays that way and it's protected above by all of these people, all of these alumni who have come out of it, and it keeps that basic connection to the community, I think it'll go on for as long as it wants to.
How do you protect it? That model that you've just drawn so perfectly. That's what it is. But how do you protect it? I know that's about having strong community links and keeping the values and the core beliefs the same. But we know it's a remarkably changing world. It changes every day.
Yeah, well, it's changed a hell of a lot in 40 years. And when I went into that tent, I had the same feeling, the same vibe, the same happiness, the same tears that I had 40 years ago. Well, that's not something you can write on paper, or you can, prescribe in some kind of way. That spirit, that culture, if you like, has come out of all of the various elements, all of the tensions that have existed at various points in time. It's come out of all of that, and it's survived it. And my thinking about it is that, when we speak about communities, we often speak about communities coming together in crisis or under threat. And I think the difference with this project is that because it's totally focused on young people and on empowering young people, it's not a community that's been brought together under crisis or threat. It's a community that's brought together in hope, out of hope. You know, it's focused on hope. And so all of the shenanigans, you know, that are mainly kind of adult shenanigans
Yes.
that go on around it,
Yeah.
they don't really matter.
No.
You know, and eventually the adults get over it and get through it and find a solution, you know, but the spirit of the thing remains, you know, as it always has been.
What did it do for you as a person? You were what age? You were what age when
29.
1970?
29.
29.
I was a kid.
Came out of the Victorian College of the Arts, graduate of the Victorian College of the Arts, along with Mark Sheriffs
And Lloyd Sutter.
and Lloyd Sutter. Came up here. This was a project that the late great Peter Oyston.
You know what we were called? Oyston's Oysters.
Natural or Kilpatrick?
They were the bureaucrats who came up with that term.
Oyston's Oysters.
And I was proud of it. I don't mind being an oyster.
Oh no, oysters luxury. Bring on the oysters. Okay, and so so you come up here and you've got the Murray River Performing Group together. As you say, this was the International Year of the Child, and this was the second project.
Yes.
That the Murray River Performing Group put together, and it took an amazing effort to get it together. I remember a story that you told and John Paxanos told about the Canada tour, which was, I think, 1984.
No, 80. The first
Sorry,
one
the
was
first
81, and
Sorry.
then the second one was 84.
Yeah.
No, 83.
84.
83. I think it was 2 years later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and that first one. So you're organising. See, this is what a lot of people don't. And I love thinking back to these times because there was no email, there was no faxes,
that's right.
nothing. You had phone, of course, but no mobile phone. So and everything was done by letter, mostly contracts and all that sort of stuff. But you and John Paxanos had taken a small group of people to Tumut.
Not a small group. We're in a tent this size, and we went on tour.
Right.
And we went on tour because most of the kids had never been outside of Albury-Wodonga, and we thought, well, if we're going to Canada, which is 14,000 miles away, we better get them used to being away from home. So we did a tour in the middle of summer. Yarrawonga, Tumut, Wagga Wagga, and then back to Albury. And some kids did get homesick, 30 kilometres away from home.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But anyway.
No, that's all right. And you're negotiating the deal over the phone, and I think you're talking or Paxo's talking to the promoters over at the International Children's Circus Festival in Vancouver. You're in a phone box in Tumut.
In a red phone box.
And you're pouring money. You're getting the coins out of the pockets to feed into the phone box before it runs out.
It's a big story. That particular story is a very big story. But and I remember it very clearly. We'd been in Yarrawonga. We went to Tumut. Tumut was a lot cooler. And Paco came into my van and he said, and he was white, and he said because we did that tour to get people ready for Canada. That's what it was for. The tour was for that reason. And he came in, he was white as a sheet, and he said the Canadians have cancelled. And I looked at him and I said, they can't cancel. And he said, well, they just have. And I said, well, we've got to go and we've got to phone them. So we did. And Lorenz von Fersen, who was the director of the festival over there, said, it's been cancelled. We've had a board meeting, and I said, what's the problem? And he said, we can't find a suitable tent. And I said, we'll bring a tent. And he said, the decisions already been made. And I said, who's the chair of your board? And he said, Ernie Fladell. And Ernie Fladell at the time, I think, was the head of the Canadian Broadcasting Commission. He was in New York, and I said, look, there's absolutely no way that I'm going to be going back to the show and telling parents and children and the community that we're not going to Canada because, we're 5 months away and that's all of our planning has gone into it. So I want to talk to Ernie. So he called from New York and we were waiting in the phone booth.
Oh,
And
he called the phone booth?
No, I think he called the office and the office then called the phone booth. It was something like that.
Yeah.
And then I had exactly the same conversation with him. And he said, well, the decision's been made. And I said, Ernie, we are going to be on that plane and getting off at the airport, whether you like it or not. And he said, if you can bring a tent, you can come. So then it was a question of, well, how the hell do we get a tent to Canada? And that was a whole other story.
Now that Canada tour, that first one, Mickey Ashton went on that tour?
Yeah, he did, and his story is really interesting because Pixie and Jim knew him, and he was running a knock 'em down stall in the local agricultural show that came through, and they knew how good he was, and he, while he was in Ashton, he wasn't with the circus. He was with a group called the Seven Ashtons, and they toured internationally. They were doing shows in New York and the London Palladium and all sorts of places, and they brought him in, and he was just incredible, and I said to him that he could have a job for as long as he wanted, and he was incredible. He could get kids to do things that. Well, you may have seen him operating. He could get kids to do things that you couldn't believe, and just by the way he worked, and the whole time he was, doing all these vaudeville routines as well, and imitating W.C. Fields and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. He was on when he walked onto the floor of the YMCA. He was on.
Yeah.
It was like he was on show.
Yeah.
This was the performance.
Yeah.
Whether he was training, whether he was talking to kids about their work, or and how to do another trick, or he used to do things like. Just don't just finish the act and walk off.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, he was very special. But everybody was, that's the thing. It's that, the Naked City, that television show in the 60s about crime in New York, and every show they'd finish with the line, there are 8 million stories in the Naked City. This has been one of them. Well, it's a little bit like that. Everyone's got their story. They don't all match up. They all come from different perspectives, and they're all real and they're all true.
Yeah. Before I let you go, and thank you so much for your time, has that experience, the 8 million stories, influenced your new novel?
People ask me, because it's about a hitman, the protagonist is a hitman, and people say, is it based on reality? And I say, I hope not. But the truth is that any work of imagination, it doesn't come from out there, it comes from in here. So any work of the imagination is coming from somewhere inside. So it comes from me. But and while it's a thriller, it's got sort of underlying things that would probably be definitely of interest to you in the work that you're doing in mental health, because there's quite a lot of stuff in there that would definitely go over into that sort of area.
Yeah, and just on that, since you raise it, we've all had our journeys with mental health over the years, and it was really, and here we are at this wonderful this festival of celebrating youth and all things wonderful about it, and yet it was interesting. Just this week, a survey showed that a survey of kids under 18, Australian kids under 18, now said their major issue is mental health.
Yeah.
There's the environment, sure, there's climate change, there's getting a job, but the number one now has become mental health.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, and I think it's really important. Like, to be a little bit serious about all this for a bit, I'm sure that my history, which no one knows very much about, but my history of growing up was the thing that both propelled some of the work that I did and some of the choices that I made about that work, particularly with kids and everything like that. I'm sure that is the that probably wouldn't have happened if I had not if I had gone through the kind of process afterwards of examining all that part of my life. I don't think this would have happened. So in a sense, it wouldn't have happened through me. This happened in a sense out of something that was in me that was unconscious. But and now that it is conscious, I'm not quite sure that even at 29 I would have done it.
No,
so
I know exactly what you're saying.
So you look at it and you think,
Yeah.
well, this is all wonderful and what a wonderful thing, but there was a part of me that was unconscious that was driving it,
Yeah.
and I'm absolutely, full of gratitude that I had the opportunity of being involved in it, but at the same time, it's so
I
hard
know
to explain.
where you're going. Have you grown into the person you thought you would grow into?
I've grown in. I tell you
Who
what.
have you grown into?
Well, I think what's happened is that, see, I mean, I'll be very specific about it. I grew up in life-threatening domestic violence. Alcohol, domestic violence, and I developed a way of surviving that. I was the youngest, so I saw everything happen before me, so I worked out the best possible way that I could get through all of that and survive. And I think as a result of that, I understood opportunity. I understood that there were kind of opportunities. Often those opportunities were not about creating something, they were about escaping something. And I think my personality grew out of all of that. And that kind of sense of seeing where an opportunity was and taking the opportunity is the thing that kind of drove a lot of this forward. But I wore it like a coat, and it was really only when I got into serious and very important kind of talk therapy. That was the therapy. That some of this stuff that I wore kind of sank into me and became something that I understood emotionally. So it wasn't something in my head; it was something that I felt. And I can give you an example of. This is a bit grim, but when I was 14, my father crept up behind me and smashed a beer bottle over my head, and I've got scars on my head around it. He could have killed me, and after all of this left, and I had a bit of a kind of fall, a bit of a fall from grace, really, and it was quick, and it didn't last that long, thank God. But I was with my therapist, and I was telling him about all of this, and I said, it required a kind of certain pushing and a kind of energy, and I might have been a bit controlling or whatever, and I said, and during all of that time, I was quite self-conscious, and even though other people wouldn't necessarily see that, I was quite self-conscious. And you know what he said to me? And this is the magic of therapy. He said, "Of course you were, Robert, because you didn't want someone coming up behind you and smashing you over the head with a bottle." Now, when somebody does that, you're a changed person forever, because suddenly something that couldn't understand was kind of understood emotionally. And he was able to take something from here and just take a zero line straight back to its origins.
Yes.
And you change.
Did you have to go back and find that child? Did you have to go back and find your inner child at that age and not reinvent him or send him on another path, because you can't change that, but did you have to go back and love him?
Read the book.
You haven't lost it, have you? I'm getting all emotional about this. And you upsell me. You go, oh no, you'll have to read the book.
It deals precisely with that.
Right.
It's a thriller. So it's entertaining. It's a page turner, but that's at the heart of it.
Where's the book? Where do we get it? It's coming out. Is it
Yeah,
published?
it's coming out. Yeah, I'll give you one.
Jingos.
Mm.
See, that's an entire story, and I've got to leave that now because this is important
It's really important
for mental health.
Yes, yeah. It's important for mental health because there's a connection. You don't just see it in this. You see it particularly in the girls now who are doing AFL and stuff. You see it. You see it in all that sport stuff. This is different because it's non-competitive. I think it's much better. But it's the same thing. If you are able to achieve something physically, particularly as a child, somehow I think that is internalized emotionally, and it becomes a part of you. So, and the kids in the film this morning talked about it. They talked about exactly the same thing. It gives you a kind of confidence. They couldn't find the words for it, but it is the same thing. And I think physically, when you get out, you see it. Like the body becomes more open. And
it's that core strength. It's that resilience.
And it's the emotional connecting of that to the kind of emotional life of the person, the felt life of the person. And I think that happens more and is more capable of happening in children and in teenagers than it is in blokes like you and me.
Couldn't agree with you more. All right, thanks.
Oh, there's a gift for you.
There's a gift for you. Johnny Kovacs, our producer. Wonderful man that he is, and generous man that he is. He's got the Arnold's bag.
Great.
And it's always healthy. Now, you'll need you're going back into the tent, so you'll need some plastic Band-Aids, assorted Band-Aids there in case you come unstuck on, because you'll probably be getting up trying to do an act. And look at this. Nectarines. Look.
Very nice.
Locally grown.
Very, very nice.
Thank you, Johnny. A pear in case things go pear-shaped during the day, and a nani for your potassium levels.
Fantastic.
Hey, look, thank you so much. Thanks for your generosity and your openness. And after all these years, it's just wonderful to sit down and talk with you again.
Yes, it is indeed.
Thanks for everything you've done.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for your life.
Yeah, well, thanks for all of our lives. We've only got one.
Yeah.
There's less ahead than what was before, too.
I can't wait to read the novel. That's going to be my Christmas reading. What's it called?
It's called Where Angel Fears to Tread.
Where Angel Fears to Tread. Under Robert Perrier?
Yeah.
By Robert Perrier. Christmas holiday reading on the beach somewhere.